Hey friends, hope you're doing fine. Now today I'd like to show you a way how you can dynamically highlight profit values for any kind of dimension you have, let's say in my case for the countries, which are above a certain threshold. And when I say dynamically, I'd like to give the report consumer the option to adjust the threshold value, and the colors of course then should also be adjusted automatically. So let's do that. At first, I need some kind of visualization, and I will go with a bar chart. So let me go to Visualizations pane here and select here the column or bar chart. And then I also like to use, in this case, a dimension. So I'm using from our orders table the column customer country. That's what I tick here. And then I also need some kind of measure, and I will go with the total profit. So there are my total profits, and I select the value in here. And then I get a bar chart here where I can see all my countries and I can see the bars. And I don't want to sort them descending, so I go in here and say sort axis, and I simply choose customer country. So it's kind of mixed like that. Okay? So far so good. Now we can see the bars, and let's say I'd like to highlight everything with a profit above 40K. How do we do this? Well, we can easily create a measure for that. We can say, okay, right click on measures table, go to new measure, and then let me just zoom in here so you can see that better. There's the measure. Let's say this is our, let's call this dynamic color coding. It's equal to, and then I say with a simple if condition, so if, in this case my measure, which is my total profit. So if this total profit is greater than our threshold, which is, for instance, 40K, then I'd like to return a 1, and if not, I'd like to return a 0. And that's everything we need to do. So not really complex, easy to apply. Let's execute this. So, and this should give us a 1 or 0 for each of the bars we have in here, whether it's across the 40K or not. Next, let's also insert this 40K as, let's say, a reference line here. So I will go in the analytics pane, and then there is an option to add, in this case, a constant line, which will be my reference line. And I simply type in here an add, and then as a value, I use the 40K here we had. Press enter. Okay, and let's maybe adjust the color. Let's say it's black. You can play around with the transparency if you want, although you want a dashed line or any other kind of line, and so on. I'll leave this up to you. Now finally, of course, we need to apply the coloring here. So let's select the chart, and let's go to the formatting option, formatting. And for the data colors here, we can go to the FX button here and click here on the color option. And then let me here use rule. So I tick on rule. And then here for what field should this rule based on, I will use my, in this case, color, right? So dynamic color coding, here it is. I can select it. And then I need to just check for two options. If the value is equal to 0, and it should be a number, then it should be white. And on the other hand, let's add a new rule. If the value is equal to 1, and here also a number, then I'd like to use here a yellow color, for instance. I can click OK. And now you'll see it's exactly as we expected. So everything above, even if it's only small, so closely above the 40,000, it's yellow. Otherwise, it's white. So far, so good. Okay, that works. Now let's say we want to make this dynamic, because currently we set it to a fixed value of 40,000. How do we do this? Let me maybe drag this below. And then let's go to the modeling option and use a parameter for that. So what if parameter? Let's tick this option and let's name this. Let's say this is the threshold, and it is a whole number. The minimum should be 0, that's fine. Let's say the maximum is 100K. So this of course depends on your specific data, right? And the increment, let's say the increment is 5,000 in my case. We want to add a slicer to the page, that's fine. And click OK. And then we get our parameter, just a second, there it is. That's the threshold, which we can now increase using this option here in 5,000 steps. You can also adjust it here, whether you want to have a different kind of, list, drop down, and so on. For me, I leave the slider on here. And now, of course, we can adjust it here, but so far it's not linked to, in this case, our color coding, but we can easily do this, right? Because this parameter, if parameter, has created a table for us. So if I take a look at my threshold here, there's the table. And this table has a threshold value, which is this one here, this option. And this here gives simply the values between, in this case, 0 and 100K in 5,000 steps. And that's what we need to implement now in our color dynamic color coding. And here, instead of the hard-coded 40, we simply use the threshold value. So type in threshold value. There it is. And now let's execute this. And we see that now everything above 25,000 is colored in yellow. And if I make this bigger, for instance, 65, you'll see that only those two are colored. So that works exactly as we expected. The last thing we need to adjust is, of course, the reference line we have here. Because we set the constant line also to a fixed value, which was 40K. So it's our task to adjust this as well. Otherwise, it would be quite confusing, right? To have it always static at 40K, even though the colors are changing. So that's why we go again to the analytics pane in here. Of course, you need to select this first. And then instead of using the 40K here, we do the same trick. We go to the FX to use conditional value in here. We use a field value, and then we simply search for threshold in here. So if you search for threshold, there's an option to choose the threshold value. Tick this option, click OK, and now you see that this is now 65,000, exactly here. And if I make it smaller, you'll see that the line also adjusts in here, okay? So that's how that works. So hopefully that was interesting. I encourage you, try this out yourself, and hopefully you can use this in your own reports. Again, thanks a lot for watching. Please consider subscribing if you have not done so far. It would mean a lot to me and also help me to create future videos for you. Then take care, stay safe, and hopefully see you in the next one. Until then, best guys.